Welcome to the Davis Horton House. This is the oldest standing structure in downtown San Diego, or the Gaslamp as it is known. It's a historically designated area. This house has a very storied history. It was first home for the Army of the Pacific officers. When they took off as the Civil War broke out, Alonzo Horton, our founding city father, moved in. The next person that moved in was a lady named Anna Shepper. She opened the first county hospital in this house and had patients in every single room except for the kitchen. Anna got paid $1 a day of patients, so you can well imagine she jammed as many as possible in this house. Anna moved out after 8.5 years of doing this without running water or electricity. And a German immigrant couple moved in, Henry and Lena Lohman. They saw this 4-year-old boy walking up and down the street. The poor child was begging. He had been deserted by his mother, father, and grandmother. So they took this little boy in, his name was George Deo, and raised him as their own. When the Lohmans passed away in 1936, they left the home to George. George never married, but he took in an orphan who was living with his grandmother named Edward Lanuza. Edward ultimately married, brought his bride to live here with he and George. They had 4 children. They all lived in the home. This place had no electricity until we opened it as a museum in 1984. When George passed in 1977, he left the house to Edward's wife, Esther, because Edward liked to gamble a little. Ultimately, when they were going to do the restoration, renovation down in East Village, the house had to be sold to the city. It was moved here, and we opened it in 1984 as a museum.
So we saw the beautiful tour of the museum, and now we are intentionally in the dark. We could have used our magical TV lights, but we didn't. I'm here with Catalina, the executive director of the Davis Horton House, because we wanted to show you the problems that they were facing. This is what visitors who come to the museum are seeing. It's very dark in here.
Yes, and they would actually come up to the front door, they would peer in here, and it just plain looked gloomy. And in addition to that, because we've had to have the blinds down to protect all the artifacts, this room is decorated as it was in the 1880s when Alonzo Horton and his wife lived here. We had to protect these artifacts, part of our museum collection. We couldn't open the windows, so not only was it gloomy, it was hot.
Because the sun will really do some damage to the hardwood floors,
Definitely.
to the artifacts, and it's so important that we preserve these items.
Yes, this is San Diego's heritage. I mean, this is our history right here. And this has been one of our long-term goals to get a window film, and we couldn't find a company that could do it. We have windows that are from 1850. I mean, this is the oldest structure in downtown San Diego. Companies were not willing to try to put a film on windows from the 1850s. And then we found Greg McKay and New View, and he said, let me see what I can do for you.
And of course, let's show you now what it looks like when we open these windows and how inviting the museum is. So now we've transformed this room, we've taken off all of the shades that used to keep it dark in here, but there's an added benefit that we haven't talked about, which is the heat.
Well, not only is the room brighter, you'd think bringing in more sunlight would make the room warmer, but in fact it's actually cooler because about 80% of the sun rays, the rays have been blocked. And the other thing is, I mean, if you stood here before, you would never know that we had this beautiful red sofa. We have a bright yellow chair here. These are things that you simply couldn't see before because the room was too dark.
It's such a great success story, and believe it or not, there is even more to this story that we have to share coming up later in the show. Throughout the show, we've learned a lot about the Gaslamp Museum's historic Davis Horton House and the problems that it was facing. Then we saw the incredible impact that window films had. Greg McKay from New View Window Films installed those films, and he's here today to share one last piece of this incredible story. Greg, you donated these films to the museum.
Yes, we did donate the films.
What made you choose this as a project to use as a charitable effort?
Well, Horton House had called us up and asked us they needed some window tinting to help protect their interior from premature fading and control the heat.
Yeah. And what made you choose to donate them instead of just taking it on as a regular job?
Well, I thought as a little give back to San Diego, we might as well step up to the plate, offer the window films at no charge to them, and take care of the Horton House.
I love that because as Approved Home Pros, that's part of our, we're here on the ground in San Diego. New View's a local San Diego company giving back to the oldest, standing structure that the Gaslamp has. This is the film that was installed, and you can see that it's very clear because working on a historic property, as we learned, there's a lot of regulations.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about the film and the benefits, how long it's going to last that they're going to see.
Well, we went with this film here because you can't tell that it's on the windows
Right.
when it's installed, but it blocks 99% of the UV rays from coming in.
99% of the UV
Yes.
rays, and those are the damaging rays that would have been that were, up until the films were installed, harming these artifacts that we really want to preserve.
Yes, and you're also blocking about 50% of the heat from coming in the windows, so it
Which
keeps it cool.
also was a big concern for the museum. The extra bonus that we have for you today is that the Davis Horton House, the Gaslamp Museum, has donated some tickets for our viewers out there. If you want to go to the museum, we have a handful of complimentary tickets. They're valued at $20 a piece, and we're going to give them out in pairs. So if you want to find them on ApprovedHomePros.com and contact us, we'll be giving out the very first tickets there.